Welcome to CNN Student News. My name is Carl Azuz. We're starting today with a recap of a hostage situation that unfolded this week in Australia. In its largest city, Sydney, a gunman entered a cafe Monday and took about 17 people hostage. Australian officials believe he acted alone. They don't know yet what he wanted or why he targeted the cafe. Officials say the suspect was born in Iran. He considered himself a Muslim religious leader. He had a criminal record in Australia, and experts believe he was inspired by Middle Eastern terrorist groups. Hours after the standoff began, several of the hostages escaped, and 16 hours into the siege, Australian special forces and police stormed the cafe from two entrances. They killed the gunman and ended the standoff. 2 of the hostages died in the siege. 4 others, including a police officer, were injured. Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott called it a difficult day, but said Australians had risen to the challenge. Staying near Australia for our second story, hundreds of miles off the country's coast, searchers are scouring the ocean floor for the wreckage of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. It was traveling from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia to Beijing, China on March 8th. Authorities believe it took a turn and then just vanished somewhere over the Indian Ocean. The disappearance of its 239 passengers and crew is one of the biggest stories and mysteries of 2014.
Flight MH370 ended in the southern Indian Ocean.
How fast it goes depends essentially on the sort of terrain you're covering, and that varies from quite flat plains or sloping areas to ravines and fissures and crevasses, which require much closer work.
From Monday's transcript page at CNNStudentNews.com, it's time for the roll call. We'll start in the capital of Virginia. That's Richmond, and that's the home of North Star Academy. Good to see you. Delaware may be one of the smallest U.S. states, but we've got a big welcome waiting for the students of MOT Charter High School. The Mustangs are hoofing it in historic Middletown. And on the West Coast, in Moreno Valley, California, hello to the Mavericks of March Middle School, rounding out our roll. There has never been a hack like this before. It involves the computer systems of Sony Pictures. Hackers broke in last month. They've been releasing confidential information online, and they say there's more to come. It's stuff any corporation wants to keep secret. Social security numbers, movie scripts, movies that haven't been released, salaries of executives and actors, what executives have said about actors. The attack shut down Sony's computer systems. At one point, employees had to work with only paper, pens, and fax machines. Who did this?
While the Sony hackers promise a Christmas gift of yet another juicy and possibly worse data dump, Sony is asking news organizations to ignore the leaked emails. The studio now hiring David Boies, a high-profile litigator, to demand that news organizations not reveal any further hacked material. In a letter that CNN received, Boies writes, "If you do not comply with this request and the stolen information is used or disseminated by you in any manner, Sony will have no choice but to hold you responsible." In the letter, Sony strongly suggests that they are being blackmailed not to release the upcoming movie The Interview, calling the attack an ongoing campaign explicitly seeking to prevent Sony from distributing a motion picture. It's the first time the company has said publicly that this comedy, that pokes fun at a plot to assassinate leader Kim Jong-un, appears to be the target of this attack. Sony has not accused any particular group of being behind the attack, but security experts now point the finger at North Korea.
Essentially, we've done their bidding. We've maximized the exposure to this content, and I don't do that lightly. But on the other hand, it was going to get out there anyway. We have to be part of the conversation.
This just weeks after hackers broke into the studio's computer systems and published millions of confidential and embarrassing emails.
You know, the Wright brothers got us into powered flight, but the pioneers of balloon flight were real animals. Back in 1783, when balloons were taking off, there were concerns about the effects of altitude on people. So the guinea pigs, so to speak, were a duck, a sheep, and a rooster. They made that flight about a month before the first people did. Now that's random. All right, flash forward a couple hundred years. Going into space was a reality, but you needed to be an astronaut, an advanced degree in engineering or science or math, at least 1,000 hours piloting a jet. Those were NASA's preferences. That's not the case at the $209 million Spaceport America. It's in New Mexico. It's where commercial space travel could get off the ground.
The future of travel could take place here, someday. This is Spaceport America in New Mexico, a place where you can buy a ticket for a future ride to space.
And liftoff.
For decades, NASA has dominated the space industry, but over the last 10 years or so, entrepreneurs like Sir Richard Branson, Elon Musk, and Amazon's Jeff Bezos have injected billions into the field. They're looking to make space travel commercial.
I think it's important.
We want to make space accessible to everyone. That would be the ultimate dream.
Virgin Galactic plans to shuttle customers into suborbital space for $250,000 each, and they plan to do it from a facility like this. They're not alone. Xcore Aerospace, Worldview also have plans to send people to space. But the tourism industry is just one part of commercializing space. Economists who study the field say the real moneymaker will be something called point-to-point travel. Imagine traveling by space plane from London to Singapore in an hour, or from Los Angeles to London in a couple of hours. These ships, once they're tested and approved, could be the Concorde of the 21st century, zipping people and packages around the globe ultra-fast. Innovating for the future of travel is a huge task and will take time. Point-to-point is still in its infancy, and commercial space tourism has yet to find its legs. And there are setbacks along the way. Virgin Galactic, a company considered by many to be leading the pack in commercial space tourism, suffered a major setback during a test flight in October. One of their space planes, flying over the Mojave, came apart, killing one pilot and injuring another. As it grows, the commercial space industry is having to overcome some of the same issues its predecessors like NASA faced: fire, explosions, and losses of life. But those leading the way, like Virgin's Branson, say despite the challenges and setbacks, they too are enduring. They will push ahead.
In the early days of aviation, there were incidents, and then aviation became very safe. We're going to learn from what went wrong, discover how we can improve safety and performance, and then move forwards together.
There are 9 spaceports in the country, and more are planned in the coming years. When commercial space flights take off, they'll launch from places like this one. Will buildings like Spaceport America and others one day shuttle paying customers back and forth to space? We can't say for sure, but at one point, the idea of a race to the moon must have seemed pretty daunting as well.
In a one-stoplight town, this wouldn't work. But in a heavily populated city where you have to wait a while to cross the street, why not turn the wait into a competition? This is the brainchild of 2 European graduate students. The idea, while you're waiting for a walk signal, play a round of Pong, or a game styled like it, with the stranger also waiting across the street. It'll help you pass the time while you pass the ball. Plus, gamers who can't stop gaming will think there's something really cool about it. And if it's cost-effective and keeps people safer, walk could go Pong. It's a handy way to keep our feet from crossing across the crosswalk till the crossing signal signals feet can safely walk across. CNN Student News steps back in tomorrow.